You know what fascinates me about the 5 years before retirement? It's not just the numbers. It's not even the strategy. It's the fact that one of the most important decisions you'll ever make doesn't feel like a decision at all until suddenly it is. One day you're 45, planning vaguely. The next, you're 60, staring at a calendar and realizing the window is closing. 5 years sounds like a lot. It isn't, but it's also not too little. It's actually the sweet spot. The exact stretch of time where small, careful moves can completely reshape your future. Most people waste these 5 years. They drift. They assume things will work out. They keep doing what they've always done, hoping the math somehow lands in their favor. But this stretch, these final years before retirement, they are different. They demand attention. They reward focus. And they punish neglect more than any other period of your working life. So today, I want to walk you through what these 5 years should actually look like. Not the generic advice you've heard 1,000 times. The real blueprint, the one that quietly separates the people who retire with peace from the people who retire with regret. Let me introduce you to two people, Carol and Nancy, both 60 years old, both 5 years from retirement. On paper, they look very different. Carol worked as a nurse for 35 years. She has about $310,000 in her retirement account, a small pension coming, and a modest home that's nearly paid off. She lives in a quiet neighborhood, drives a 10-year-old car, and worries quietly about whether she's done enough. Nancy worked as a corporate manager. She's got $940,000 in her 401k, no pension, a bigger house with a mortgage still attached, and a lifestyle that costs significantly more each month. From the outside, Nancy looks like the winner, the success story, the one who got it right. But here's the thing. 5 years from now, Carol is going to retire with less stress than Nancy, and by the time you finish this video, you'll understand exactly why. Because the real question isn't who has more saved, it's who has more certainty. Let me ask you something. Do you know what your monthly income will actually look like when you retire? Be honest with yourself. Most people can quote their account balance but freeze when asked about monthly income. And that gap, that single gap, is where most retirement anxiety lives. Here's where we need to reframe something important. For your entire working life, you've been taught to focus on one number, the big number, the total, how much you've saved, how much you've accumulated, how close you are to that magical 7-figure target everyone whispers about. But retirement doesn't pay you in lump sums. It pays you in months, in weeks, in bills that show up on the 1st and the 15th. Your savings is just one piece of a much bigger picture. And if you spend these 5 years only obsessing over that one piece, you're going to miss the whole story. Think of it this way. Your income floor is like the foundation of your house. Strong, underground, invisible, but holding everything up. Your savings? That's more like the furniture. Important, yes. Comfortable, definitely. But without that foundation, nothing else stands. So your first job in these 5 years isn't to maximize your savings. It's to map your foundation. Every dollar of guaranteed income you'll receive in retirement, Social Security, pension, annuities, rental income, anything that arrives without you having to sell something to get it. Write those numbers down, add them up. That's your floor. That's the ground you're standing on. And once you see that number clearly, everything else starts making more sense. Now let's talk about Social Security, because this single decision will affect more of your retirement than almost anything else you do in these 5 years. You have choices. You can start at 62. You can wait until your full retirement age, which for most people is 67, or you can delay until 70. Each year you wait between 62 and 70, your monthly check grows, quietly, steadily, permanently. The difference between claiming at 62 and waiting until 70 can be nearly double the monthly amount. Let that sink in. Double for the rest of your life. Think of your benefit like a faucet. Behind that faucet is a pipe, one you've been filling your entire working life. Every paycheck, every tax contribution, it all builds pressure in that pipe. When you turn the faucet on early, the water trickles. When you wait, the pressure builds, and the flow becomes powerful, steady, generous. And if you wait too long to turn it on, well, you also need to think about your health, your family history, your other income sources. There's no single right answer, but there is a right answer for you. And these 5 years are when you figure it out. Most people just claim at 62 because they're tired or scared or because someone told them to. That's not a plan. That's a reaction. And reactions cost money, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Before we continue, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, this would be a really good time to do it. I make videos like this every week, walking through the real stuff nobody else explains clearly. Now let's go back to Carol and Nancy. Carol's been quietly running her numbers. She knows her Social Security at 67 will be about $2,400 a month. Her small pension adds another $900. That's $3,300 a month of guaranteed lifetime income before she touches a single dollar of her $310,000. Her monthly expenses? About $3,100 because her house is nearly paid off, because she drives an old car, because she spent the last decade quietly reducing what she needs to live well. So when Carol retires, her guaranteed income already covers her life. Her savings becomes a cushion, a vacation fund, a medical safety net, not a survival tool. Nancy's situation is different. Her Social Security will be higher, around $2,900 a month because she earned more, but she has no pension, so her guaranteed income is $2,900. Her monthly expenses? Closer to $7,500. Mortgage, higher property taxes, lifestyle costs, the car payment, the country club. Nancy needs her savings to fill a $4,600 monthly gap every single month for the rest of her life, with inflation, with market dips, with the possibility of living another 30 years. That's not a cushion, that's a tightrope. And the bigger the gap between income and expenses, the more wobbly that tightrope becomes. You don't need to be rich to retire well. You need your income to cover your life. This is where most retirement advice gets it backwards. They obsess over the savings number and ignore the expense number. But these two numbers exist in relationship. They're partners. And in these 5 years before retirement, your job is to bring them into alignment. Now here's something nobody likes to talk about. Inflation. It's not exciting. It's not urgent. It doesn't crash the market in a single day, but it quietly erodes your purchasing power year after year after year. Inflation is like an ice cube in the sun. It doesn't melt all at once. It creeps, it nudges, it slowly raises the cost of everything around you. Your groceries, your insurance, your healthcare, your utilities. The same lifestyle costs more every single year, and if your income doesn't grow with it, you start falling behind without even noticing. This is why Social Security matters so much. It has a cost of living adjustment built in, a COLA. Every year, your benefit adjusts upward with inflation. Your pension? Maybe. Some have COLAs, many don't. Your savings? Only grows if you invest it well and don't pull out too much too fast. In these 5 years, you need to test your plan against inflation, not just today's expenses, but what those expenses will look like in 15, 20, 25 years. Because retirement isn't a moment. It's a long, slow chapter that can last 3 decades or more. Run the numbers. Add 3% a year to your expenses, then 4%. Then see if your income still holds. If it does, you're in good shape. If it doesn't, you have time right now to adjust. Here's a question. If you had to choose between more money or more certainty, which would it be? Keep that in your head as we go, because almost everyone says money out loud. But underneath, what they really want is certainty. The peace of knowing things will be okay. Let's talk about your expenses, because this is where most people in their final 5 years quietly lie to themselves. They think they know what they spend. They don't. They have a rough idea, a feeling, a guess, but a feeling isn't a plan. For the next 3 months, I want you to track every single dollar that leaves your accounts. Every subscription, every grocery run, every coffee, every birthday gift, every utility bill, every doctor visit, everything. Most people are shocked. They discover they spend 20, 30, sometimes 40% more than they thought. And that gap, that invisible gap, is what destroys retirement plans. Because if you build your plan around a number that's too low, your money runs out earlier than expected. But here's the good news. Once you see your real numbers, you can do something about them. You can cut, you can shift, you can choose what matters and let go of what doesn't. These 5 years before retirement are the perfect time to right-size your life. And right-sizing isn't deprivation. It's clarity. It's keeping what brings you joy and quietly removing what doesn't. Most retirees discover they don't miss what they cut. They only notice the freedom that comes after. Now let's talk about debt, because debt in retirement is one of the heaviest invisible weights you can carry. Some things in life are heavy but invisible, like carrying a backpack all day. You get used to it, but it never goes away. That's what debt feels like in retirement, especially mortgage debt, car loans, and credit card balances. In these 5 years, prioritize paying down what you can, especially anything with high interest. Every dollar of debt you eliminate before retirement is a dollar you don't have to earn after. And earning becomes harder when you're not working anymore. If you have a mortgage with 5 or 6 years left, push to finish it before you retire, even if it means downsizing, even if it means selling. Walking into retirement debt-free is one of the most powerful financial moves you can make. Not because of the math, though the math is real, but because of the psychology. A paid-off home feels different. Sleeping in a house that's yours, fully yours, with no payment due on the first of the month, changes how you feel about money. It changes how you feel about everything. Now here's something most people never think about. Sequence of returns risk. Sounds technical, but it's actually simple, and it might be the most important risk to understand right now. Imagine 2 retirees. Both have $500,000. Both withdraw the same amount every year. Both earn the same average return over 30 years, but one of them retires right before a market crash. The other retires right before a strong bull market. Even though their average returns end up identical, the first retiree runs out of money. The second retiree dies with more than they started. Same average, completely different outcomes. Because when you take money out matters as much as how much you take. This is why these 5 years before retirement are crucial. Because your investment mix should slowly, carefully shift. Not because growth doesn't matter anymore, but because protection starts mattering more. A big drop in your first few years of retirement can do permanent damage. A big drop 10 years in? Much less so. So in this window, you want to build what some people call a buffer. Cash, short-term bonds, conservative investments. Enough to cover 1 to 3 years of expenses without selling your stocks during a downturn. That buffer gives your investments time to recover. It gives you time to breathe. It gives you control. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever avoided opening your retirement statements because you were afraid of what you'd see? Most people have. There's no shame in it. But these 5 years are when you stop avoiding and start looking. Quarterly at minimum, monthly if you can. Not to panic, to plan. Let's talk about something nobody enjoys discussing. What happens if you're married and one of you is gone? Survivor planning, spouse planning. It's uncomfortable, it's emotional. But ignoring it doesn't make it less real. If one of you dies, the household loses one Social Security check. Sometimes a pension reduces or disappears entirely. Expenses don't drop by half. They might drop by 20%. So suddenly, the surviving spouse is dealing with grief and a significant income loss at the same time. In these 5 years, talk about it openly. What pension options will you elect? Single life or joint and survivor? Yes, joint pays less monthly, but it continues for your spouse after you're gone. For many couples, that protection is worth every dollar. What about life insurance, long-term care? What if one of you needs years of expensive care while the other still has decades to live? These aren't dark questions. These are loving questions. The kind that protect the person you love most when you can't be there anymore. Carol and her husband had these conversations. They chose the joint pension option. They updated their wills. They wrote down passwords and account numbers. Nancy and her husband, they keep meaning to. They'll get around to it. Maybe next year. That's how the years slip by, and that's how survivors get caught flat-footed. Now let me bring up something powerful, healthcare. Because between 60 and 65, before Medicare kicks in, you're in one of the riskiest financial windows of your life. Private insurance is expensive, really expensive, sometimes $1,500 to $2,000 a month per person. If you retire at 60, you need to plan for 5 years of healthcare bridge costs. Some people use a spouse's plan, some use COBRA, some use the marketplace, some take part-time jobs just for the benefits. Whatever your strategy, you need one. Pretending it'll work itself out is not a strategy. Once Medicare starts at 65, costs come down but don't disappear. Premiums, supplements, prescription plans, dental, vision, hearing. Healthcare in retirement can easily run $500 to $800 a month per person. Build that into your plan now while you have time to adjust. Here's a thought. If the system only rewards you with almost enough, you will spend your entire life chasing more. How does that make you feel? Because that's exactly what most people are doing, chasing a number that always moves, a target that never quite settles. But these 5 years are your chance to stop chasing and start choosing. Let me give you a practical framework. 5 years out, here's what you focus on. 5 clear, doable things that will quietly transform your retirement readiness. First, map your guaranteed income floor, Social Security estimates, pension projections, any other lifetime income. Add them up. Know your floor. Second, track your real expenses for 90 days. Not what you think you spend, what you actually spend. Then identify what to cut and what to keep. Third, eliminate as much debt as you can, especially high-interest debt. Pay extra on your mortgage if possible. Walk into retirement light. Fourth, build your buffer. 1 to 3 years of expenses in cash and conservative investments. Protect yourself from sequence risk and bad timing. Fifth, decide your Social Security strategy. Not impulsively, run the numbers. Talk to a fee-only advisor if needed. This single decision might be worth 6 figures over your lifetime. And there's a quiet sixth one. Talk to your spouse about survivor income, about goals, about what retirement actually looks like. Not just the money, but the days, the rhythm, the meaning. Money is just the fuel. The life is the destination. Now back to Carol and Nancy, because their stories keep teaching us. Carol spent her 5 years quietly executing this framework. She paid off her car, she tracked her expenses, she moved part of her savings into safer investments. She studied her Social Security options. She talked to her husband about everything. Nancy spent her 5 years working harder, earning more, saving more, trying to push that big number higher. But she didn't pay down her mortgage. She didn't track her expenses. She didn't shift her investments. She didn't plan for health care between 60 and 65. She just kept doing what had been working. When they both retired, Carol slept well from day one. Her income covered her life. Her savings was a comfort, not a crutch. Nancy, she still has more money, but she watches the market every morning. She worries when bills come. She second-guesses every restaurant meal. You may already have what people with millions are searching for. That's the part nobody tells you. Peace doesn't come from your account balance. It comes from the alignment between what comes in and what goes out. From clarity, from knowing. There are people with millions of dollars who don't feel secure, and there are people with modest savings who sleep soundly every night. The difference isn't the number. The difference is understanding. Understanding your income, understanding your expenses, understanding what actually matters. These 5 years before retirement are the most powerful window you have left. Not because everything has to be perfect, but because everything can still be adjusted. You can shift investments. You can cut debt. You can right-size expenses. You can plan Social Security. You can build the buffer. You can have the conversations. In 5 years, all of that compounds. Small moves stack on top of small moves. By the time you reach retirement, your life isn't a question mark. It's a quietly confident answer. But you have to start now. Not in 3 years. Not when you finally feel ready. Now. Because these years move faster than any years you've ever lived. They don't feel like 5, they feel like 1, maybe 2, and then you're there. If this is the first video of mine you've seen, subscribe. If it's the 10th, you already know what to do. I make these because I genuinely want you to walk into retirement with the kind of clarity Carol has, not the kind of anxiety Nancy carries. Let me leave you with one more idea. Retirement isn't a finish line. It's a transition from earning to enjoying, from building to living, from doing what you have to do doing what you want to do. And the smoother that transition, the better the rest of your life feels. You don't need $1 million. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to outsave everyone you know. You need an income that covers your life. You need expenses you understand. You need debt that's mostly behind you. You need a buffer to absorb shocks. And you need a partner conversation that protects the person you love. That's it. That's the blueprint. Not flashy, not complicated, not impossible. Just 5 honest years of focus. And here's the truth most people miss. The folks who retire well don't have secret knowledge. They don't have insider tips. They didn't pick the perfect stocks. They simply paid attention during these final 5 years. They made small, steady, intentional moves. They asked the right questions. They stopped lying to themselves about expenses. They stopped chasing a number and started building a life. You can do the same thing, starting today, starting this week, starting with 1 phone call to estimate your Social Security, 1 spreadsheet of expenses, 1 conversation with your spouse, 1 honest look at your debt. These small acts feel quiet, They don't change your account balance overnight, but they change your trajectory. And in 5 years, trajectory becomes everything. Your income needs to be greater than your expenses, but your confidence needs to be greater than your fear. Numbers matter, but how you feel about those numbers, that matters just as much. And that feeling, that confidence, it doesn't come from having more. It comes from understanding more. So take a deep breath, pull out a notebook, write down where you are today, then write down where you want to be in 5 years, not just financially, emotionally. What kind of mornings do you want? What kind of peace do you want? What kind of conversations do you want to be having? Because retirement isn't built in spreadsheets. It's built in the quiet, daily decisions you make in these final 5 years. And the more honest you are now, the more freedom you'll have later. Carol didn't have more money than Nancy. She had more attention, more awareness, more willingness to face the real numbers, the real risks, the real questions. And that's what made her retirement feel like rest, while Nancy's still feels like work. You get to choose which path you walk. You get to choose what you focus on. You get to choose whether these 5 years are spent drifting or building. Nobody else can make this choice for you, but you don't have to make it alone. You just have to make it on purpose. If this video helped you see your retirement in a new way, hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot more where this came from. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, remember, you don't need perfection. You need clarity, and clarity is closer than you think.